Your heart stops without salt. Not eventually, not after years of deficiency. Your heart actually stops. Every beat of your heart depends on sodium ions moving across cell membranes. Every nerve signal in your body relies on the same mechanism. Every muscle contraction, every thought, every blink. Without enough sodium, your brain swells. Your cells cannot communicate. You die, and your body cannot make salt. It has no way to produce sodium internally. Every milligram of sodium you have ever used came from something you ate or drank. So here is the question. How did your ancient ancestors, living deep inland, far from any ocean, without salt mines, without salt shakers, without any obvious source of dietary sodium, manage to get enough? The answer forces you to rethink everything you thought you knew about the human diet. Because the truth is that ancient humans consumed salt in ways you have probably never considered. Through blood, through plants, through ash, through a sophisticated understanding of seasonal and geographic salt sources that they passed down across thousands of years. And the most surprising part, they were probably healthier than you are. Let us start with the obvious source. Meat. When a hunter-gatherer kills an animal, they eat the whole animal, not just the muscle meat that you buy in a supermarket. They eat the organs, they eat the blood, they eat the bone marrow, and this makes a massive difference in sodium intake. Animal blood contains approximately 80 to 100 milligrams of sodium per 100 milliliters. That does not sound like much, but when you eat the blood of a large animal, along with its organs and tissues, the sodium adds up. A 2003 study by Catherine Milton at the University of California, Berkeley, analyzed the sodium content of a typical hunter-gatherer diet. She found that whole animal consumption provided significantly more sodium than muscle meat alone. But here is the critical point. Ancient humans did not eat meat 3 times a day. They ate it when they could get it. After a successful hunt, they would gorge. Between hunts, they subsisted on plant foods, and those plant foods were often very low in sodium. So how did they maintain sodium balance during the lean periods? This is where the story gets really interesting, because ancient humans had a secret weapon for maintaining sodium levels during plant-heavy periods. They had salt-rich plant sources. There is a group of plants called halophytes. These plants grow in saline soils and accumulate sodium in their tissues. One of the most common is Salicornia, also known as glasswort or sea asparagus. It contains up to 2,000 milligrams of sodium per 100 grams. That is more than a bag of potato chips. Ancient humans living inland knew about these plants. They knew which plants grew in salty soils. They knew when to harvest them. They knew how to prepare them. A 1990 study by Timothy Johns and other ethnobotanists at McGill University documented that hunter-gatherers in arid regions systematically harvested salt-rich plants and incorporated them into their diet. But even more surprising is the use of ash. When you burn certain plants, the ash left behind is rich in minerals, including sodium. A 2005 study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition analyzed the mineral content of ash from traditional cooking fires used by the Yanomami people of the Amazon. The ash contained significant amounts of sodium, along with potassium, calcium, and magnesium. The Yanomami and many other indigenous groups used ash as a seasoning. They would collect ash from specific plants, mix it with food, and consume it. The ash provided not just sodium, but a whole spectrum of minerals that are absent from modern processed foods. And here is the astonishing health data. The Yanomami consume roughly 200 milligrams of sodium per Dalton Yai. That is about 1/20th of the average Western intake. They have the lowest blood pressure ever recorded in any human population. They have virtually no hypertension, no heart disease, no stroke. When researchers from Brigham and Women's Hospital studied the Yanomami in the early 2000s, they found something that challenged everything we thought we knew about sodium. The Yanomami had low sodium intake. Yes, but they also had high potassium intake. Their ratio of sodium to potassium was roughly 1 to 10. The Western ratio is roughly 10 to 1. This suggests that the problem with modern sodium is not just the amount. It is the imbalance. Ancient humans got their sodium alongside high levels of potassium, magnesium, and other minerals. Modern humans get their sodium in isolation, stripped of the accompanying minerals that help the body process it. Now, let us look at the most dramatic source of ancient sodium: blood. In 2010, anthropologists studying the Maasai people of East Africa documented their traditional diet. The Maasai are pastoralists. They herd cattle, and one of their traditional foods is a mixture of cow blood and milk. The blood provides sodium. The milk provides calcium and fat. Together, they form a complete nutritional package. The Maasai drink this mixture fresh, directly from the cow. A single cup of cow blood contains about 80 milligrams of sodium. Combined with the sodium already present in milk, a Maasai warrior gets a significant portion of his daily sodium from a single drink. But here is the deeper point. The Maasai did not figure this out by accident. They observed that cattle needed salt. They observed that cattle would travel miles to natural salt licks. They observed that the blood of those cattle was salty, and they drew the connection. Eat the cattle, get the salt. Drink the blood, get the salt. This is the same pattern we saw with medicinal plants: observation, hypothesis, testing, transmission, refinement. Across generations. Now let us go back in time, much further back, before agriculture, before pastoralism, before any of the food systems we recognize today. How did the first inland humans get salt? The answer is salt licks. Natural salt deposits occur in specific locations around the world. Ancient humans found these locations and returned to them year after year. They collected salt crystals from the surface. They scraped salt-rich soil. They followed animals to salt licks and harvested from the same spots. A 2012 study in the Journal of Anthropological Research traced the use of natural salt licks in prehistoric Africa. The study found that early human migration patterns followed salt sources. Where salt was available, humans settled. Where salt was absent, humans passed through quickly. Salt was not just a condiment. It was a determinant of human geography. The oldest known salt mines in the world are at Hallstatt, in Austria. They have been in continuous operation for over 7,000 years. Archaeologists have found preserved wooden tools, leather satchels, and the bodies of miners who died in the tunnels 3,000 years ago. These miners were not looking for a flavor enhancer. They were looking for survival. The Hallstatt salt mines produced massive amounts of salt, which was traded across Europe. The salt trade created wealth. That wealth built cities. Those cities became civilizations. The entire Iron Age economy of Central Europe was built on salt. But before Hallstatt, before organized mining, there was surface collection. Ancient humans walked to salt deposits, collected what they needed, and walked back. They knew where the salt was. They knew when to harvest it. They knew how much to take. This knowledge was as valuable as any other survival skill. If you knew where the salt was, you knew where you could live. If you did not, you had to follow the animals. Now let us talk about what happens when you do not get enough salt. Sodium deficiency, called hyponatremia, is not subtle. The first symptom is fatigue, then muscle cramps, then confusion, then seizures, then coma, then death. But here is the fascinating thing. Ancient humans rarely suffered from sodium deficiency, even in salt-poor environments. Why? Because they had a biological adaptation that modern humans have partly lost. They had a powerful sodium appetite. Your brain has dedicated neural circuits for sodium craving. These circuits, discovered by neuroscientist Derek Denton at the University of Melbourne, are among the oldest and most primal drives in the mammalian brain. When your body is low on sodium, these circuits activate. You become obsessed with finding salt. You crave it. You seek it out. Denton showed that this sodium appetite is present in every terrestrial vertebrate. It evolved over 300 million years ago, when the first animals crawled out of the ocean and had to find ways to maintain their internal salt balance in a salt-poor terrestrial environment. Your craving for salt is not a weakness. It is not a modern addiction. It is a survival instinct that is older than your species. It is older than your genus. It is older than your genus. It is older than your entire evolutionary lineage. So when you reach for the salt shaker, you are not being weak-willed. You are being human. You are being mammal. You are being a descendant of creatures that crawled out of the sea and had to fight for every grain of sodium. But here is the paradox. Modern humans consume too much salt. The same instinct that kept our ancestors alive is now killing us. We have sodium appetite in a world of infinite salt, and our bodies cannot tell the difference between salt we need and salt we just want. The Yanomami have the lowest blood pressure ever recorded. They also have the lowest salt intake. The average American has high blood pressure and the highest salt intake. The correlation is clear. But here is the deeper insight. The Yanomami do not crave salt the way you do. Their sodium appetite is quiet. Why? Because they get enough from their diet. They get sodium from blood, from organs, from ash, from halophytic plants. Their sodium appetite is satisfied without them even thinking about it. Your sodium appetite is screaming because your diet is broken. You eat processed foods that are loaded with isolated sodium chloride, stripped of the potassium and magnesium that would help your body process it. Your sodium appetite detects the imbalance and keeps screaming, even as you consume way too much. The ancient human relationship with salt was balanced, not because they were smarter, not because they had more willpower, but because they had more willpower, but because their food was whole. Their sodium came packaged with the minerals that help the body use it. Today, salt is everywhere, and it is killing us. But the instinct that makes you crave it is not the enemy. It is a 300 million-year-old survival mechanism that worked perfectly for almost all of human history. It just does not work in a world of processed food. So the next time you reach for salt, think about the Hallstatt miner who crawled through a dark tunnel 3,000 years ago. Think about the Maasai warrior who drank cow blood. Think about the Yanomami woman who collected ash from her cooking fire. They got their salt, they survived, and they did it without a single salt shaker. Your body already knows how to handle sodium. You just have to stop confusing survival instinct with addiction. You want to understand just how important salt was to your ancestors. Look at the word salary. It comes from the Latin word salarium, meaning a payment made in salt. Roman soldiers were paid in salt because salt was more valuable than gold in some periods. Look at the word salad. It comes from sal, the Latin word for salt. Romans salted their greens. Look at the word sauce. Same root. Salt is baked into our language because it was baked into our survival. Now, consider this. In 1997, archaeologists working at the Lake Yuncheng site in Shanxi province, China, found evidence of salt production dating back 6,000 years. The site is a salt lake, and ancient people had built an elaborate system of channels and evaporation pools to harvest salt from the water. This is not surface collection. This is organized industrial production. 6,000 years ago, before the Great Wall, before the Silk Road, before the first Chinese dynasty, there was a salt industry. Why? Because salt was the most valuable commodity on earth. You could not live without it. You could not preserve food without it. You could not trade without it. The salt trade routes of prehistoric Europe connected the Mediterranean to the Atlantic, the Alps to the Baltic. The salt roads of the Sahara carried salt from the desert to sub-Saharan Africa, where it was traded for gold at a 1-to-1 ratio. Salt was literally worth its weight in gold. A 2005 study from the Romanian Academy documented early salt production in the Carpathian Basin. They found evidence of briquetage, a technique where brine was evaporated in pottery vessels to produce salt cakes. The technique dates back 6,500 years. The salt cakes were then traded across the region. Think about the infrastructure this required. Someone had to find the salt spring. Someone had to build the evaporation vessels. Someone had to harvest the salt. Someone had to transport it. Someone had to trade it, and all of this happened before writing was invented. Now, I want to get personal with you, because your relationship with salt is more complicated than you think. You have an organ dedicated to regulating your sodium levels. It is your kidney. Your kidney filters your blood, reabsorbs the sodium you need, and excretes the rest. It does this without your conscious input. It is one of the most sophisticated regulatory systems in your body, but your kidney can only work with what you give it. If you consume too little sodium, your kidney holds on to every milligram it can. Your urine becomes sodium-free. Your sweat becomes less salty. Your body scavenges sodium from your tissues. If you consume too much sodium, your kidney works overtime to excrete it. But it has limits. When those limits are exceeded, your blood volume increases. Your blood pressure rises. Your heart works harder. Over years, this damages your blood vessels, your heart, your brain. Here is the insidious part. The excess sodium does not just raise your blood pressure, it damages your blood vessel walls directly. A 2018 study in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology showed that high sodium intake causes endothelial dysfunction, meaning the lining of your blood vessels stops working properly. This happens even in people with normal blood pressure, so the damage from excess salt is happening silently. You cannot feel it, you cannot see it. Now I want to tell you about an experiment that illustrates the power of your sodium appetite. In the 1940s, a researcher named Kurt Richter at Johns Hopkins University performed a series of experiments on rats. He removed their adrenal glands, which are critical for sodium regulation. The rats should have died of sodium deficiency within days, but they did not. They started drinking concentrated salt water. They consumed exactly the amount of sodium they needed to survive. No more, no less. Richter called this sodium appetite, and he showed that it is one of the most powerful and precise drives in the animal kingdom. Rats with sodium deficiency will cross electrified grids, endure painful stimuli, and overcome any obstacle to get to salt. Your sodium appetite is the same. It is not a learned behavior. It is an instinct. It is hardwired into your brain by millions of years of evolution, and it is one of the most powerful drivers of human behavior. But here is the difference between you and your ancestors. Their sodium appetite led them to natural sources of salt, whole foods, balanced minerals. Your sodium appetite leads you to a bag of chips, a fast food burger, a can of soup. Same instinct, different outcome. A 2009 study from the University of California, Davis, showed that the human sodium appetite can be reset. When people are placed on a low-sodium diet for several months, their salt taste threshold changes. Foods that used to taste normal start to taste too salty. Foods that used to taste bland start to taste just right. Your sodium appetite is not fixed, it adapts. The problem is that modern food has trained it to expect more and more salt. You have trained your sodium appetite to scream louder and louder. Your ancestors had the opposite experience. Their sodium appetite was whisper quiet because their diet consistently provided the sodium they needed, along with the minerals that helped them process it. They did not crave salt because their need was already met. You crave salt because your need is not met, not because you do not get enough sodium. You get way too much, but you get it in isolation, and your body cannot balance isolated sodium. So the fix is not to eat less salt. The fix is to eat better food, whole food. Food that comes with all the minerals your body needs to process the sodium it contains. Eat an animal that ate a natural diet. The meat will have the right mineral balance. Eat a plant that grew in healthy soil. It will have the trace minerals you need. The Yanomami did not count sodium. They ate whole foods. Their sodium intake was low, but their mineral balance was perfect. Your sodium intake is high, but your mineral balance is terrible. That is the lesson from your ancient ancestors. Not less salt, better food. Your body has a 300 million-year-old sodium regulation system. It knows what to do. You just have to give it the right materials to work with. Let me leave you with one final image. There is a place in the Bolivian Amazon where the Yanomami still live as they have for thousands of years. No electricity, no running water, no supermarkets, no salt shakers. A Yanomami woman prepares a meal. She takes cassava from her garden. She takes fish from the river. She takes ash from her cooking fire and sprinkles it over the food. That ash contains everything she needs: sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium. A perfect mineral balance. She does not know she is getting sodium. She does not know she is regulating her blood pressure. She does not know she is avoiding the diseases that kill millions of modern humans every year. She just knows that the ash makes the food taste better, and that her body feels right after eating. You are separated from her by thousands of years of technological progress, but you are not separated by biology. You have the same kidneys, the same sodium appetite, the same need for mineral balance. The difference is that she still lives in the world her body was designed for. You live in a world of processed food, isolated sodium, and constant craving. You can go back, not to the forest, not to the ash fire, but to whole food, to balanced minerals, to a quiet sodium appetite. Your ancestors survived without salt shakers. You can too.